Hello and welcome to ArtJam's Watercolor Tips and Techniques video. We're going to give you some brief pointers in this video. The first thing we want to talk about is your paintbrush, which consists of a handle of wood or plastic, a ferrule made of metal, and bristles. And the bristles are held onto the handle with that metal ferrule. It's important to remember that the only part of the brush that actually paints is the tip of the bristles, not the metal ferrule. Watercolor paintings are created by applying translucent layers of colors, one on top of another. In order to create translucent colors, you need to add water. The more water you add, the more translucent or lighter the color will appear. The less water you add, the more opaque or darker the watercolor will appear. And here we're adding water to our black and blue in order to paint a background. And you can see here we're just simply using the tip of the brush to mix the paints and then to apply to the surface. Another technique that's interesting is called the resist technique, which means that watercolor will not stick to or will resist sticking to any area that has wax on it. So in order to block the watercolor from sticking, we apply a white wax crayon to areas that we want to remain white in our painting. And as you can see, as I paint this fish red, where I applied the white wax, it remains white dots. Another technique is known as wet on wet, where you dab color onto wet paint that you have applied, and you allow the color to spread naturally. So here we're painting a little orange fish, and while the paint is wet, we're going to apply some red in order to create those beautiful red blotches that appear on some of the koi fish that you may be painting. And so you see here the dark red kind of spreads out onto the orange and creates this beautiful kind of surface. Before adding any details like dots or gills or scales, you need to have your surface dry for about 15 to 30 minutes. You can speed up this dry time by using a hair dryer set on low to help you dry the surface faster. But once the surface is dried, you can begin to apply details. And you can see here the colors don't spread like they do when you use wet on wet. And you can apply black, you can apply reds, any color on top that you wish. And finally, you can use a sponge to create beautiful textures in your painting simply by dabbing the sponge in paint and adding it on, or wetting the surface again to remove the paint. So here I've added too much paint, so I'm going to lift it off a little bit with my wet sponge. In this area, I'm adding dark paint with my sponge. But just remember, don't rub, dab up and down so that you don't tear your wet paper. And finally, you can remove excess paints or mistakes by using your little cotton swabs. You simply take your cotton swab and dab off the color in an area that you don't want. For example, right here, there's some black paint that got onto my little fish, so I'm going to just dab it off with the cotton swab. And here we have your finished little watercolor. For more delicious art projects, go to www.artjams.net.